Sarah Reeves had always been a thorn in the side of authority. At 28, she was a mechanical prodigy with a rebellious streak a mile wide. Her latest creation, a sleek hoverbike that defied conventional engineering principles, was about to land her in more trouble than she'd ever imagined. The sun was setting over the New Mexico desert as Sarah gummed the engine of her experimental vehicle. The military's restricted zone stretched out before her, a tempting expanse of empty land perfect for pushing her invention to its limits. She knew she shouldn't be here, but the thrill of the ride and the chance to prove her design's capabilities were too enticing to resist. "Let's see what you can do, baby," Sarah murmured, patting the hoverbike's gleaming chassis. She leaned forward, her body streamlined against the wind, as the bike's engine hummed with barely contained power. The hoverbike responded beautifully, gliding over the rough terrain with a grace that made Sarah's heart soar. Rocks and scrub brush passed in a blur beneath her as she pushed the speed higher and higher. The bike's anti-gravity field, her own innovative design, kept them floating a meter above the ground, immune to the imperfections of the landscape. Sarah's triumph was short-lived. As she crested a rise, her eyes widened in shock. Ahead of her, marring the perfect flatness of the desert, was an enormous crater. The hoverbike's proximity sensors blared a warning, and Sarah instinctively jerked the controls. The bike wavered, its anti-grav field fluctuating wildly as it struggled to compensate for the sudden maneuver. For a heart-stopping moment, Sarah thought she'd lose control. Then her hundreds of hours of practice kicked in, and she expertly guided the bike into a controlled descent. As the dust settled around her, Sarah's curiosity overtook her caution. The crater wasn't natural. Its edges were too clean, its shape too perfect. At its center, barely visible in the gathering dusk, was something that reflected the last rays of the setting sun. "What the hell?" Sarah muttered, unclipping her helmet. She should leave. She was already trespassing, and whatever this was, it screamed classified government project. But Sarah had never been good at walking away from a mystery. She approached the edge of the crater, her boots sliding slightly on the loose soil. As she drew closer, the object at the center came into focus, and Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. It was a ship, but like no ship she'd ever seen before. Its hull was a deep iridescent blue that seemed to shift and swirl as she watched. There were no visible seams or rivets, the entire structure appearing to be formed from a single piece of impossibly smooth material. Most striking of all was the soft, pulsating light that emanated from within, visible through what seemed to be viewports along its side. "This isn't one of ours," Sarah whispered, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. If this wasn't a secret military project, then it could only be. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden increase in the ship's pulsing light. Sarah squinted, raising a hand to shield her eyes. In that moment of distraction, she failed to notice the ground beneath her feet beginning to crumble. With a startled cry, Sarah found herself sliding down the crater's slope. She scrambled for purchase, but the loose soil offered no grip. She tumbled to a stop at the base of the crater, mere meters from the alien vessel. Groaning, Sarah pushed herself to her feet, brushing dust from her clothes. As she raised her head, she found herself face to face with the ship's hull. This close, she could see faint patterns swirling beneath its surface, like currents in a deep ocean. Driven by a mixture of scientific curiosity and sheer awe, Sarah reached out a trembling hand towards the ship's surface. Just before her fingers made contact, a seam appeared in the seemingly solid hull. With a soft hiss, a section of the ship began to iris open. Sarah stumbled back, her heart pounding. This was it. First contact. Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, a million possibilities. What would emerge? Would it be friendly? Hostile? Beyond her comprehension. As the opening widened, a figure began to emerge. Sarah held her breath, watching as an alien form took shape in the ethereal light spilling from the ship's interior. Whatever happened next, she knew her life, and possibly the fate of all humanity, was about to change forever. Sarah's eyes were fixed on the opening of the alien ship, her body tense with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The figure emerging from the vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen or imagined. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, its body a symphony of bioluminescent patterns that pulsed and shifted in hypnotic waves. Its form was vaguely humanoid, with 2 arms and 2 legs, but there the similarities ended. The being's skin seemed to be a living, swirling mist contained within a transparent membrane. Where a human would have a face, this creature had a cluster of iridescent orbs that Sarah instinctively knew were sensory organs. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as human and alien regarded each other. Then, without warning, the alien stumbled, its legs buckling beneath it. As it fell, Sarah saw a deep gash in its side, oozing a glowing silvery liquid. "Hey, are you okay?" Sarah called out, instinctively moving to help. But her step forward triggered an immediate response from the ship. A high-pitched whine filled the air as panels on the vessel's hull slid open, revealing an array of ominous-looking protrusions. Before Sarah could react, beams of searing energy lanced out, carving smoking furrows in the ground around her. "Shit!" Sarah dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a blast that singed her jacket. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. The ship's defenses had activated, but why? Was it protecting its injured pilot, or had her approach been misinterpreted as a threat? Another volley of energy beams forced Sarah into a desperate roll. She scrambled behind a boulder, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The relentless assault continued, slowly chipping away at her meager cover. "Think, Sarah, think," she muttered to herself. Her eyes darted around, assessing her surroundings, her inventor's mind already formulating plans and discarding them just as quickly. Her gaze fell on her hoverbike, still perched at the edge of the crater. An idea began to form, crazy, reckless, but just maybe crazy enough to work. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. Then, in one fluid motion, she vaulted over the boulder and sprinted towards her bike. Energy beams sizzled past her, close enough that she could feel their heat on her skin. Reaching the hoverbike, Sarah gunned the engine. The anti-grav field sprang to life, lifting the bike off the ground. Instead of fleeing, however, Sarah turned the bike towards the alien ship and opened the throttle full bore. The hoverbike shot forward, skimming mere inches above the ground. Sarah weaved and juked, her reflexes pushed to their limit as she dodged the onslaught of energy beams. She was betting everything on her theory that the ship's eye-targeting system wouldn't be prepared for the erratic movements of her custom-built machine. As she neared the ship, Sarah pulled hard on the controls, sending the hoverbike into a tight spiral. The maneuver threw off the targeting system just long enough for her to close the distance. At the last second, Sarah leaped from the bike, tucking into a roll as she hit the ground. Behind her, the hoverbike slammed into the ship's hull, its anti-grav field creating a localized disruption in the vessel's energy shield. The weapons fell silent. Sarah lay on the ground, heart pounding, waiting for the next attack. Instead, she heard a series of complex tones emanating from the ship. Slowly, she raised her head. The alien had managed to prop itself up against the hull of its vessel. Its sensory orbs were focused on Sarah, and the patterns of light across its body had changed, becoming slower and more rhythmic. "I really hope that's a good sign," Sarah murmured, cautiously rising to her feet. As if in response, a beam of soft light enveloped Sarah. But instead of harm, she felt a gentle presence in her mind. Alien concepts and images flowed into her consciousness: apology, admiration, urgency. The ship's AI had recognized her actions as a display of both intelligence and non-aggression. More than that, it had seen in her maneuvers a level of skill and adaptability that registered as deeply impressive in its alien parameters. Sarah's eyes widened as she began to understand. You need my help, don't you?" The injured alien's luminous patterns pulsed in what Sarah somehow knew was affirmation. As the gravity of the situation settled over her, Sarah realized that this was more than just first contact. This was the beginning of a partnership that could change everything. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges this cosmic encounter might bring. "All right," she said, a mix of determination and excitement in her voice. "Let's see what we can do." The alien ship's interior was a marvel of organic technology, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to respond to Sarah's presence. But she had little time to admire her surroundings. The injured alien, who had somehow communicated that its name was Zax, was deteriorating rapidly. "Okay, Zax," Sarah muttered, her mind racing. "Let's figure this out." The ship's AI, now recognizing Sarah as an ally, projected a holographic display of Zax's vital signs. To Sarah, it looked like a dazzling array of shifting colors and pulsating geometric shapes. She couldn't read it, but she could sense the urgency it conveyed. "Right, first things first. We need to stop that bleeding." Sarah looked around, hoping to find something resembling a medical bay. Instead, her eyes fell on a panel that seemed to beckon her. As she approached, it slid open, revealing an array of tools unlike anything she'd ever seen. Sarah reached out, hesitating for a moment before grasping one of the devices. As soon as her fingers closed around it, information flooded her mind. Not in words, but in concepts and impressions. She suddenly understood that this tool could manipulate energy fields at a subatomic level. "This could work," Sarah said, a plan forming in her mind. She turned to Zax, who had slumped against a console, its bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly. "I'm going to try something. I hope you trust me, because we don't have time for second guesses." Sarah activated the device, watching in awe as it projected a shimmering field over Zax's wound. She focused her thoughts, guiding the energy to knit together the alien's strange, mist-like flesh. It was like trying to sow fog, but slowly the silvery fluid stopped flowing. "That's bought us some time," Sarah said, wiping sweat from her brow. "But you're not out of the woods yet." A series of urgent beeps drew her attention to another console. The holographic display showed what Sarah interpreted as the ship's life support systems, and they were failing fast. "Great, out of the frying pan and into the fire," Sarah grumbled. She moved to the console, her hands hovering over the alien controls. "All right, ship. You and I need to have a chat." As if in response, the ship's AI initiated another neural interface. Sarah gasped as technical schematics and system diagnostics flooded her mind. She saw the intricate web of energy conduits that powered the ship and the complex algorithms that regulated its environment. But she also saw the problem. A crucial component in the life support system had been damaged, possibly in whatever incident had injured Zax. The ship's automated repair systems were trying to compensate, but they weren't designed for this level of damage. "You need something that can adapt on the fly," Sarah realized aloud. "Something that can think outside the box." A grin spread across her face. "Well, you're in luck. That's kind of my specialty." Sarah's mind raced, drawing connections between the alien technology and the principles she'd used in designing her hoverbike. The anti-grav field generator she created might just be compatible with the ship's systems. "I need to get to my bike," Sarah said, turning to the ship's eye. "Can you lower the ramp?" The ramp descended, and Sarah sprinted out to the wreckage of her hoverbike. She quickly located the anti-grav generator, thanking her stars that it had survived the impact. As she worked to detach it, she heard a commotion in the distance. Flashlights bobbed on the horizon. Someone was coming to investigate. "No time to be gentle," Sarah muttered, yanking the generator free. She raced back into the ship, the ramp closing behind her just as voices became audible outside. Back at the life support console, Sarah began the delicate process of integrating her technology with the alien systems. It was like trying to plug a toaster into a quantum computer, but Sarah was in her element. Her fingers flew over the controls, making adjustments on the fly as she coaxed her creation into harmony with the advanced alien tech. Come on," she urged, watching the life support readings fluctuate wildly. For a heart-stopping moment, everything went dark. Then, with a low hum, the systems came back online. The holographic display stabilized, showing a steady, healthy rhythm. Sarah let out a whoop of triumph, turning to Zax with a grin. "How's that for human ingenuity?" Zax's bioluminescent patterns brightened, swirling in what Sarah interpreted as a mix of gratitude and admiration. But their victory was short-lived. A loud clang resonated through the ship. Something was trying to get in. Sarah's smile faded as she realized their problems were far from over. "I think our alone time just ran out," she said grimly. "Got any other surprises for me, Zax? Because I have a feeling we're going to need them." The pounding on the ship's hull grew more insistent. Sarah's mind raced, trying to think of a way out of their predicament. Suddenly, Zax's luminous patterns shifted, and Sarah felt a gentle probe in her mind. "You want to connect our minds?" Sarah asked, incredulous. "Is that even possible?" Zax's affirmative response came not in words, but in a wave of reassurance and urgency. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, let's do this." As soon as she agreed, the ship's interior light dimmed, and a soft, pulsating glow emanated from Zax. Tendrils of luminescent energy reached out, enveloping Sarah in a cocoon of light. She gasped as her consciousness expanded, merging with Zax's alien mind. The experience was overwhelming. Sarah's perception shattered and reformed, expanding beyond the confines of the ship, beyond Earth itself. She saw vast, swirling nebula and strange, crystalline worlds orbiting distant suns. Civilizations rose and fell in the blink of an eye, each leaving its mark on the cosmic tapestry. Through it all, Sarah felt Zax's presence, guiding her through the torrent of information. She learned of Zax's species, the Lumina, a race of energy beings who had transcended physical form millennia ago. Their technology, their very existence, was based on the manipulation of energy and consciousness itself. But with this wondrous knowledge came a dark undercurrent. Sarah saw a faction of the Lumina, twisted by fear and greed, seeking to weaponize their gifts. Zax was a fugitive, fleeing with vital information that could prevent a galactic war. As the vision faded, Sarah found herself back in the ship, gasping for breath. The whole experience had lasted mere seconds, but she felt as if she had lived 1,000 lifetimes. "That was intense," Sarah managed, her voice shaky. She looked at Zax with new understanding. "Your people, your technology. It's incredible, but also terrifying in the wrong hands." Zax's patterns swirled in agreement, but before they could communicate further, a new sound cut through the air, the unmistakable whine of a plasma cutter working on the ship's hull. "Looks like your pursuers caught up," Sarah said grimly. "We need to get out of here, fast." She turned to the ship's controls, her hands moving with newfound confidence. The knowledge Zax had shared was still swirling in her mind, and she found she could now read the alien interfaces as easily as English. As Sarah worked to get the ship airborne, Zax moved to another console. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the group surrounding their ship. Sarah was surprised to see both human military personnel and what appeared to be disguised Lumina among them. "Talk about an unholy alliance," Sarah muttered. "All right, Zax, I've got propulsion back online. Any ideas on how to get past them without hurting anyone?" In response, Zax's body pulsed with a brilliant light. The ship's systems responded, and suddenly the hull became transparent from the inside, giving them a clear view of their surroundings. "Optical camouflage," Sarah said, impressed. "That'll do nicely." With a gentle hum, the ship lifted off the ground. The group outside scattered in confusion as their target seemingly vanished into thin air. Sarah guided the vessel up, and away from the desert floor, a grin spreading across her face as they climbed into the night sky. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Sarah felt a wave of emotion from Zax. Gratitude, admiration, and something deeper, curiosity. You want to know more about us? About humans? Sarah asked, understanding the unspoken question. Zax's affirmative response came with a flurry of images. Human art, music, literature, all glimpsed from Sarah's own memories during their mental connection. Sarah laughed. Well, we're a complicated bunch, but I guess that's what makes us interesting. She thought for a moment, then smiled. You know what? I've got an idea. We're going to need to lay low for a while anyway. How about a little detour? As they soared over the nighttime landscape of Earth, Sarah began to plan. She would show Zax the best of humanity. Its creativity, its resilience, its boundless capacity for growth and change. And in return, perhaps she could learn more about the wonders of the cosmos. But as they flew, a part of Sarah's mind remained alert. She knew their pursuers wouldn't give up easily. This respite, this cultural exchange, was just the calm before the storm. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Sarah was determined to face them, for the sake of her new alien friend, and for the future of both their peoples. For 3 days, Sarah and Zax crisscrossed the globe, staying just ahead of their pursuers. They visited the peaks of the Himalayas, the depths of the Amazon rainforest, and the bustling streets of Tokyo. Each location offered new wonders for Zax to experience and new challenges for Sarah to overcome as she pushed the alien ship to its limits. As they hovered above the aurora borealis, Sarah noticed a fluctuation in the ship's energy readings. That's odd, she muttered, her fingers dancing over the console. Zax, are you seeing this? Zax's luminous patterns shifted in concern. The ship's AI projected a detailed schematic, highlighting several critical systems that were showing signs of strain. Sarah frowned. These patterns, they're not consistent with normal wear and tear. She zoomed in on one particular section, her eyes widening in realization. This looks like intentional damage. Sabotage. Zax's body flared with alarm, and a stream of information flooded Sarah's mind through their newfound connection. She saw flashes of the Lumina homeworld, of shadowy figures infiltrating Zax's research team, of a desperate flight across the stars. You knew, Sarah said, her voice a mix of awe and accusation. You knew there was a traitor among your people, but you didn't know who. She paused, connecting the dots. That's why you were so quick to trust me. You needed an outsider. Zax's pattern swirled in a complex dance of affirmation and apology. More images flowed into Sarah's mind. The sabotage had been subtle, designed to strand Zax on Earth, without alerting him to the traitor's presence. Well, they didn't count on you finding a human gearhead, did they? Sarah said with a grim smile. She cracked her knuckles and dove into the ship's systems, determined to undo the damage. Hours passed as Sarah worked tirelessly, sweat beading on her brow. She jury-rigged solutions with a combination of Earth technology and Lumina energy manipulation, pushing the boundaries of both sciences. Zax assisted as best he could, his vast knowledge complementing Sarah's practical skills. Just as they thought they had made progress, a proximity alarm blared. Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes going to the external view screens. A sleek, dark vessel was rapidly approaching, its design a sinister mirror of Zax's ship. Friends of yours? Sarah asked, already knowing the answer. Zax's patterns darkened in response, conveying a sense of dread. Sarah's hands flew over the controls, pushing their damaged ship to its limits. They dove through cloud banks and skimmed over ocean waves, but the pursuing vessel matched them move for move. They're good, Sarah grudgingly admitted, but let's see how they handle this. She yanked the controls hard, sending their ship into a spiraling descent towards a remote island. At the last moment, she pulled up, the ship's belly nearly grazing the treetops. Their pursuer wasn't as lucky. It clipped the canopy, sending it into a tumbling crash. Sarah allowed herself a moment of triumph before the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console as multiple systems began to fail. No, Sarah muttered, frantically trying to reroute power. Come on, don't do this to me now. Zax moved to her side, his luminous tendrils intertwining with the ship's controls. Together, they managed to stabilize the craft enough for a rough landing on the island's beach. As the engines powered down, Sarah slumped in her seat, exhaustion etched on her face. "Well, that could have gone better," she said with a weak laugh. But their reprieve was short-lived. The external cameras picked up movement in the tree line, figures emerging from the wreckage of the other ship. "Zax," Sarah said, her voice low and urgent, "I need you to tell me everything. No more secrets. What exactly are we dealing with here?" Zax's body pulsed, and Sarah braced herself for another mind-melding session. As the information began to flow, she realized that their adventure so far had been just the tip of the iceberg. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. "All right," Sarah said, her determination overriding her fear. "Let's see what human ingenuity and alien technology can really do." She began to formulate a plan, one that would push both her and Zax to their limits. As their pursuers drew closer, Sarah and Zax prepared for a confrontation that would change the course of galactic history. The real battle was about to begin. The beach was eerily quiet as Sarah and Zax emerged from their damaged ship. The pursuing Lumina, 5 in total, had formed a semicircle around them. Their bodies shimmered with barely contained energy, a stark contrast to Zax's weakened state. "So," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I guess we're doing this the hard way." The leader of the pursuers stepped forward, his form rippling with dark, ominous patterns. When he spoke, it was directly into Sarah's mind, his thoughts cold and alien. "Human," the voice reverberated in her head, "this conflict is beyond your understanding. Step aside, and you may yet survive this encounter." Sarah felt Zax tense beside her. She squared her shoulders, a defiant grin spreading across her face. "Yeah, I'm going to have to pass on that. See, Zax here has shown me what's really at stake. And if you think I'm going to stand by while you start a galactic war, you clearly don't know humans very well." The leader's form pulsed with what Sarah interpreted as amusement. "Your species is young, your technology primitive. What hope do you have against us?" "Well," Sarah said, her hand inching towards a device on her belt, "we're pretty good at improvising." In one fluid motion, Sarah activated the device, a makeshift energy modulator she had cobbled together from ship parts and her own tech. A pulse of energy erupted from it, momentarily disrupting the luminous forms. "Now, Zax," Sarah shouted. Zax sprang into action, his weakened state belying his true power. He engaged the nearest Lumina in what looked to Sarah like a dance of light and energy. The beach lit up with flashes of brilliance as the Lumina battled. Sarah didn't have time to admire the spectacle. She sprinted back into their ship, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her fingers flew over the controls, bypassing damaged systems and rerouting power. Come on," she muttered, willing the engines to start. Outside, the battle raged. Zax was holding his own, but he was outnumbered. Sarah knew they only had moments before they were overwhelmed. With a stuttering whine, the ship's engines came to life. Sarah let out a whoop of triumph, only to have it die in her throat as warning lights flashed across the console. The sabotage ran deeper than she had realized. The ship's navigation and flight controls were locked. "Okay, Plan B it is," Sarah said grimly. She ran to the engine room, her mind racing. If she couldn't fly the ship, maybe she could use it another way. Back on the beach, Zax was faltering. The leader of the pursuing Lumina had him pinned down with a barrage of energy blasts. Just as it seemed all was lost, the ground began to rumble. The Lumina paused, confused. Suddenly, the damaged ship burst from its landing site, hovering unsteadily a few feet off the ground. Sarah's voice boomed from the ship's external speakers. "Hey, light brights, catch this." The ship lurched forward, barreling towards the group of Lumina. They scattered, their cohesion broken. Zax seized the opportunity, breaking free and making a dash for the ship. Sarah had rigged the ship's anti-gravity system to work independently of its other systems. It wasn't pretty, and it certainly wasn't stable, but it was moving. As Zax reached the ship, Sarah opened a hatch, pulling him in. "Hold on to something," Sarah yelled, strapping herself into a jury-rigged control seat she had assembled in the engine room. "This is going to get bumpy." With Zax safely aboard, Sarah pushed the anti-grav system to its limits. The ship rose unsteadily, wobbling as it gained altitude. The pursuing Lumina regrouped, firing energy blasts at the escaping vessel. Sarah gritted her teeth, making constant adjustments to keep them airborne. Alarms blared as systems overloaded and failed, but she pushed on. They climbed higher and higher, the island shrinking beneath them. As they broke through the cloud cover, Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. Then, a massive energy surge rocked the ship. Sparks flew from the console, and Sarah felt the sickening lurch of freefall. "Zax," she shouted over the cacophony of alarms. "I need your help. We're going to have to pull off one hell of a trick if we want to survive this." As the ocean rushed up to meet them, Sarah and Zax joined minds once more. Human ingenuity and alien technology merged in a desperate bid for survival. The fate of two individuals, and perhaps two civilizations, hung in the balance as they plummeted from the sky. Time seemed to slow as Sarah and Zax's minds merged, their consciousnesses intertwining in a desperate bid for survival. In that moment of unity, Sarah felt the vast expanse of Zax's knowledge unfold before her, while Zax experienced the intuitive leaps and boundless creativity of the human mind. With their combined intellect, they saw the solution in a flash of inspiration. Sarah's hands flew over the controls, rerouting every last bit of power to the ship's structural integrity field. At the same time, Zax extended his energy form, merging with the ship's systems at a fundamental level. Seconds before impact, the ship's form began to shift. Its rigid structure became fluid, energy, and matter blending in ways that defied conventional physics. As they hit the water, instead of shattering, the ship flowed into it, its reconfigured form allowing it to slice through the waves like a dolphin. They plunged deep into the ocean, the pressure outside mounting to crushing levels. But within their bubble of merged technology and consciousness, Sarah and Zax were safe. The ship turned submersible, stabilized at a depth of several hundred meters. As the immediate danger passed, Sarah let out a breathless laugh. Did we just turn a spaceship into a submarine? Zax's form pulsed with what Sarah now recognized as amusement and pride. The sentiment was clear. They had indeed done the impossible. Their relation was short-lived, however. A series of distant booms reached them through the water. Their pursuers were depth-charging the area. "We need to move," Sarah said, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Can we maintain this form while moving?" Zax's affirmative response came with a flood of technical data. Sarah nodded, understanding intuitively thanks to their mental link. She guided their vessel through the dark waters, using a combination of Earth's ocean currents and alien propulsion methods to throw off their pursuers. Hours passed as they traveled beneath the waves, eventually surfacing in a remote part of the Pacific Ocean. As they breached the surface, the ship began to reshape itself once more, transforming back into its original form, albeit with some distinctly Earth-inspired modifications. Sarah slumped in her seat, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "So," she said, turning to Zax, "I'm guessing this isn't exactly how your mission was supposed to go." Zax's form shimmered, and Sarah felt a wave of complex emotions through their link. Gratitude, admiration, and a deep sense of revelation. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, not in words, but in the same type of thought patterns Zax used. Sarah was surprised to find she could understand it perfectly. "Zax, do you read us? This is the Lumina High Council." Zax's form brightened with relief and excitement. He responded, with Sarah listening in awe to the exchange of rapid-fire thoughts. As the conversation concluded, Zax turned to Sarah, his pattern swirling with joy. "They got your message?" Sarah asked, remembering the data burst they had managed to send during their underwater journey. Zax confirmed, then shared the full meaning of the exchange. The High Council had received not only Zax's original data about the warmongering faction, but also a complete record of his interactions with Sarah. The Council was fascinated by the unique problem-solving abilities humans possessed and the unexpected synergy between human and Lumina minds. "So, what happens now?" Sarah asked, a mix of excitement and trepidation in her voice. Zax's response came in a flood of images and concepts. The Lumina were offering an unprecedented opportunity. They wanted to establish a cultural exchange program with Earth. But more than that, they were inviting Sarah to be the first human to join an interstellar peacekeeping force, a group dedicated to fostering understanding between different species and preventing conflicts like the one they had just averted. Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. This was far beyond anything she could have imagined when she first stumbled upon Zax's crashed ship. "You know," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face, "when I helped repair your ship, I thought the unbelievable reward might be some advanced alien tech. But this is something else entirely." Zax's form pulsed with warmth, conveying a sense of agreement and shared excitement for the future. As their ship hovered above the peaceful ocean, Sarah realized that her life had changed forever. The stars were no longer distant points of light, but potential destinations filled with wonders to explore and new friends to meet. "Well, partner," Sarah said, her eyes shining with determination and adventure, "I guess we got a galaxy to save. Shall we get started?" Sarah stood at the precipice of the greatest decision of her life. The Lumina High Council had laid out before her an opportunity beyond imagination, to become Earth's first representative in an interstellar peacekeeping force. The weight of the choice pressed down on her, a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation swirling in her mind. Zax hovered nearby, his luminous form pulsing gently with encouragement. Through their mental link, Sarah could sense his belief in her, his certainty that she was meant for this role. But doubt still gnawed at her. "Am I really the right person for this, Zax?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a mechanic from Earth. There are scientists, diplomats, leaders who might be better suited." Zax's response came not in words, but in a flood of memories. Sarah saw herself through his eyes. Her quick thinking when they first met, her resourcefulness in repairing the ship, her bravery in the face of the pursuing Lumina. But more than that, she saw her humanity, her compassion, her creativity, her ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You're right. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to find them, no matter what." With newfound resolve, Sarah turned to the holographic projection of the Lumina High Council. "I accept your offer," she said, her voice clear and confident. "I will join your peacekeeping force as Earth's representative." The Council's approval radiated through the ship, their collective consciousness expressing joy and welcome. But they also conveyed a sense of urgency. There was much to be done. Over the next few hours, Sarah's world expanded exponentially. The Council shared with her the true scope of the galactic community. Thousands of species spread across millions of worlds, each with their own unique cultures and technologies. The peacekeeping force she was joining was tasked with maintaining balance and fostering understanding among these diverse civilizations. As the data flowed into her mind, Sarah began to understand the monumental nature of her decision. She wasn't just changing her own life. She was potentially altering the course of human history. "We need to approach this carefully," Sarah said, her mind racing with possibilities. "If we reveal everything to Earth at once, it could cause panic. We need a plan to gradually introduce humanity to the galactic community." The Council agreed, impressed by Sarah's foresight. Together, they began to formulate a strategy for Earth's integration into the wider universe. Sarah's unique perspective as a human proved invaluable, helping to bridge the gap between Earth's current understanding and the advanced concepts of the galactic community. As the plans took shape, a new challenge emerged. The faction of warmongering Lumina that had pursued Zax was still at large, and there were hints of sympathizers in other species as well. Sarah realized that her first mission might be to help root out this threat before it could disrupt the delicate balance of the galaxy. "I'll need to learn quickly," Sarah said, a determined glint in her eye. "About other species, about advanced technologies, about galactic politics, and I'll need to find a way to use Earth's unique strengths to contribute to the peacekeeping force." Zax pulsed with approval, sharing glimpses of the training and adventures that lay ahead. Sarah saw herself piloting advanced spacecraft, negotiating treaties between alien races, and using her human ingenuity to solve cosmic-scale problems. As the ship prepared to leave Earth's orbit, Sarah took one last look at her home planet. The blue marble hung suspended in the void, beautiful and fragile. In that moment, she understood with perfect clarity why she had been chosen for this role. Humans, with their brief lives and limited technology, had nonetheless dreamed of the stars for millennia. They had sent their music into space, imagined countless alien civilizations in their stories, and never stopped reaching for the unknown. That spirit of exploration, that irrepressible curiosity, was exactly what the galactic community needed. "Ready to go, partner?" Sarah asked, turning to Zax with a grin. Zax's form brightened in response, matching Sarah's excitement. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose wash over her. She was stepping into a universe of infinite possibilities, carrying with her the best of humanity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, to learn, to grow, and to show the galaxy exactly what humans were capable of. The stars beckoned, and Sarah Anders, once a simple mechanic, now Earth's ambassador to the cosmos, answered their call. Her greatest adventure was just beginning.